Labor makes a push to raise the state's minimum wage. Some say now is not the time. We'll hear the pros and cons and help you decide whether to support an increase. Also, the president of the Connecticut Business and Industry Association probably has an opinion on that. As we head into the 2012 legislative session, he's here to talk about what business wants and does not want from lawmakers. Welcome to The Real Story. I'm Lori Perez. We are days away from the start of the legislative session, and as always, lawmakers have a lot on their plate. Among the many considerations they will review, a push to increase the minimum wage. House Speaker Chris Donovan and labor leaders have announced a push to raise our state's minimum wage. The proposal would increase the minimum wage from $8.25 an hour to $9 an hour on July 1st. with another hike to $9.75 next year. After that, the wage would be indexed each year to keep pace with inflation. One minimum wage worker says the increase could mean an extra $60 a week for her and others like her.
Just imagine what this would mean for people and families who work hard and strive to achieve their goals, a brighter future, pay some bills, a down payment on a vehicle, make better choices.
Now here to talk about the idea is House Speaker Chris Donovan, Senator Rob Kane, and guest analyst Pat Scully of Scully Communications, and of course the Hanging Chad. Thanks of all you for being here. Senator Kane, if we could start with you. I mean, this is an area that Republicans and Democrats have seen eye to eye on from time to time. I guess if you could explain, I mean, is there friction this time around?
Yeah, Lori, we just passed, or this legislature and this administration just passed the greatest tax increase in the history of our state. We passed a mandate of paid sick leave for employees. We passed all these types of legislation, which are just a huge burden and a huge pile-on to businesses that are already hurting. Businesses have been hurting since 2008 or maybe even longer. It's probably the worst economic time we've seen in years. Businesses can't afford any more of this constant barrage from this legislature. So the timing is just very poor. We have the highest taxes in the state, in the country. We have the highest energy prices, the highest health insurance costs. It's the worst place to retire. We're number one, no longer for basketball, but for all the wrong things.
Mr. Speaker, does he have a point? I mean, doesn't it seem like a lot in a little amount of time?
Well, I disagree with a lot of his generalizations, but the main point about the minimum wage is we're talking about the lowest paid workers in our state. People who make, if they work 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, make $17,000, a little over $17,000. If you pay a rent of about $800, that's $9,600 right there. You have a car and car insurance, you're up to about $12,000, $13,000, $14,000. We're talking $17,000. That's $3,000. Well, that's what, a couple $1,000s more you have left over. And a lot of these low-wage jobs, they don't have health insurance. You know what the average health insurance rate is for a family? $14,000. You're done. You have nothing. So, I value work. And I value workers, and I want to make sure that those on the bottom rung get a boost, so that they can go to work and know that maybe it'll be easier to make their ends meet.
Mr. Speaker, you've given the Democratic point of view very well, and I'm just wondering why the governor's not on board yet, and are you talking to him?
No, we've talked to the governor, and he basically says he wants to see what we're going to do, but he's generally supportive of raising the minimum wage.
But even he suggests that he's done two things to kind of help give a boost, as you said,
yeah,
to the low-wage workers.
No, he's done a good job, and that's good. And the paid sick leave, again, for those people, it's 5 days that you have to earn, and you get paid sick leave. The thing is, a lot of people already have paid sick leave. A lot of people are getting paid more than minimum wage. We're talking about 106,000 people in Connecticut out of 15 million who, actually 1.5 million, 15 is too much,
yeah.
1.5 million that are getting minimum wage, and 80% of them are people over 20. So we're talking about adults. Some people who've lost their jobs Now the only job they can get is a minimum wage job. So they're trying to make ends meet for their family. We're saying the cost of living has gone up since it was last raised. It's time for an increase.
But Senator, you have concerns that it would have the opposite effect.
Yeah, if I can jump in, and that's where I agree with the speaker, is that the market is going to drive it. What he said was a lot of people already have paid sick leave. A lot of people make above minimum wage. That's because the market drives this. We don't need government to tell us how to do it. Anytime, think about it, Lori, people don't go to areas where there's high crime. They're not going to enter businesses where there's high taxes. You are actually creating an environment that is the opposite. You're restricting the commerce. You're restricting people from hiring because you're putting these burdens on that prevent them from expanding their payrolls. So it's the opposite effect. We're seeing that with our budget. We now think we have a deficit in the millions because we're not seeing that sales revenue and the income tax revenue come in because we've overburdened people. So it has a negative effect.
And Senator, is it the case or is it a concern that we've heard about the workers' point of view, but from businesses' point of view, a small business has 10 workers, 5 of them are students who make minimum wage. Not only would the business owner not be able to add jobs, might have to cut back?
That's exactly right. I have an example in my district, Lake Quassapag. It's a great family amusement park, and basically the majority of his employees are high school and college-age kids who work the summer. So what you're doing, you've turned that $8 employee into an $11 employee when you add unemployment insurance and the state taxes and federal taxes. So what you're actually going to do, let's say he has a budget of so many dollars for so many employees, you're going to have to reduce that number of employees. Now, those people that the speaker, and to his credit, it's admirable, those are the people he wants to help, you're actually going to be hurting them because they're no longer going to be hired. They're going to reduce their workforce, actually.
Well, we're talking about someone making $8.25, $17,000 a year in Connecticut. How can you live on $17,000 a year in Connecticut? And the increase is 75. We're looking at 75 cents. So that is, unlike the woman said, $60. It's $30 a week. $30 a week. That's $6 a day. That's not a whole lot of money for the business, but it's for that person who now can make a little bit more in their wages. And we're talking about 106,000 people. 80% are adults. It helps them pay their bills. And I said, how do these people have health insurance? What do they do about health insurance? What do they do about car insurance? I mean, we don't have cars that drive them to work. They have to buy gas like everybody else, and they're making minimum wage. We haven't raised it in a number of years. It's time to increase it.
And Senator, to that point, making $17,000 a year, that's like $5,000 below the poverty level. Do we want these 106,000 people under the poverty level?
Listen, I want everybody to make money. I mean, this is America. This is the American way. We want everyone to earn. But there are certain jobs that you get paid a certain wage for, and a lot of these jobs are the part-time jobs or level entry positions. These are very difficult. If you continue to raise that price, you're no longer going to have those job opportunities because businesses will cut back. They can't afford it. We saw Groton and Weagle, I think, this week. We saw Key Park Electrical out of Waterbury. They're moving to Kansas. Time after time after time, we're seeing small business fail. I'm a small business owner. Sometimes I lay awake at night worrying about how I'm going to make my payroll. So, all due respect to the speaker, that's a very difficult thing when you own your own business. So it's very, very difficult to continue these burdens on small businesses when they're just trying to stay afloat.
Well, I'm going to talk about small businesses, and a lot of small businesses I know, they pay above minimum wage.
Sure. Because
they know the workers and they know what they're going through. A lot of times it's these bigger businesses. I remember seeing a woman one time, a woman in town, she was working at the customer service at a big chain. She was doing the cash register. She was calling in the people who needed help. She was taking over. I said, Lydia, you are doing a great job here. I said, how much you get paid? She was the manager. She said, I get minimum wage. I said, how do you do it? She says, well, if they keep my hours low, so I have a hard time even making 40 hours a week. During the holidays, I'm working more hours. So the big businesses, a lot of them, they actually take advantage of workers. And, just to let you know, we have the Husky program, which provides health care for low-income kids, just the kids, not the adults. The biggest employer that uses the Husky program in the state of Connecticut is Walmart. Walmart, which is, I think it's it's doing okay. We subsidize the health care for the workers in that community because they do not provide health insurance for their workers. If Walmart provided health insurance for workers, that would save the state lots of money. And if they paid them higher than minimum wage, that would help us out as well.
All right, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to continue talking when we come back. Stick around. We're going to continue our money talk heading into the session.